The name Freaknik brings to mind traffic jams and college students for most Metro Atlantans, but there is a much uglier side of this annual April event, a side not often talked about, but caught on tape by our cameras. We begin our Team 2 coverage with Mark Winnie.
Well, John, a key question here: has Freaknik come to foster an atmosphere where people, especially women, are victimized? And we were not successful in our attempts to get either Atlanta's mayor or police chief to watch some of what is in this report for on-camera comment. But one DeKalb County official has come out strongly about what happened on his turf. Imagine if you were in that minivan, virtually surrounded, the roof crushing overhead. Imagine if you were in this truck, rocking violently side to side, and you had to face the choice to do this. Images caught on camera during Freaknik weekend. Imagine if you were a young woman caught this day in a parking lot near South DeKalb Mall, pursued through a public parking lot. We do not know their identity, so we cannot tell you their feelings at this moment, how trapped they may or may not have felt. But for all they endured, it appears their flight from the crowd may not have been as rough as what another woman nearby encountered. Try to follow the struggling figure through the crowd. Try to imagine her feelings. Again, all we know about the incident is what we can see. But at least one official apparently didn't like what he saw.
It's clear that she's fighting back. It's clear that she's being assaulted.
We showed our tape of what we witnessed around South DeKalb Mall.
There was a sexual offense by that young man with the white sleeveless t-shirt. He needs to be in jail.
To DeKalb County Public Safety Director Thomas Brown.
Amazing. There were an awful lot of women out there that were innocent victims to a group of men acting like a pack of wolves.
I'm very disappointed, not only as a man, but as a black man, in terms of watching my young brothers act this way and treat young sisters this way.
Brown helped us identify two bicycle patrol officers in yellow shirts on the scene, and it looked to us like at least two other officers were in the area.
I would have loved to have had 25 officers in that parking lot.
But DeKalb was still coping with police manpower needs in the part of the county ravaged earlier in the month by tornado and storm damage. Even still, Brown acknowledges in the past most manpower has gone to keeping traffic moving. But he says Freaknik has changed, and so will police tactics.
We're at a point now that we're going to have to be much more confrontational than what we've been in the past. It's a public safety issue now. It's not a young kids blowing off steam just before final exams. These kids here, 98% of them, I doubt very seriously that they're in college or any kind of trade school.
Shift scenes to Midtown Atlanta. We certainly don't suggest all, or even most, of the problems are in DeKalb. And beyond the video, consider the voices of the victims. You are about to hear from three women who, by their accounts, were pulled from a car on the way to a restaurant, and in this woman's case, simply trying to leave work.
Imagine 100 guys on top of you and you don't know why, screaming and taking off our shirt, and they just had us pinned up in this corner.
And my other sister, you know, she was fighting, and one guy hit her in the head with a bottle, and it cut her head like right here, and I looked up and I saw her and I started crying.
And they dragged me on the ground and just start ripping on my clothing. Just start ripping. And
we plan to have their stories tomorrow, stories that may prompt some viewers to ask, could that happen to my daughter, my sister, to me? John, Monica.
Thank you. Before we go on to our second part of our team coverage, we have some breaking weather. Now, what you just saw in Mark Winnie's report is not what most of us think about Black College spring break, also known as Freaknik. Now, most of us just think of that choking traffic. But the ugly side of this event has state, city, and county officials and even students calling for change or an end to the event. Our Team 2 coverage continues. college spring break, Freaknik. It was supposed to be one great big picnic in the park. A lot of fun, but it's become something very different. And now even some college students don't even want to participate.
I don't like it at all.
She doesn't like it, and she doesn't go because of scenes like this one. A young woman posing for a picture becomes a target and a victim, having to fight her way out of a sea of hands grabbing and fondling.
As a parent, you know, I saw things on the streets that I would never want my son to participate in, and I would definitely hurt someone if my daughter had been assaulted in some of the ways.
George Hawthorne is chairman of the planning committee for what they tried to call Black College Spring Break. Participants, many of them who were not college students, called it Freaknik.
We judged that probably the student population was down to 10 to 20%.
It's middle 20s, it's later than that, or it's juveniles who've gotten in the mix. It is really turning into a free-for-all where men think that they can abuse women, and we're having to protect some women even from themselves.
But more and more women are choosing not to go.
It appears to me that any young lady that comes to this, she's got about 100% chance of being molested and groped, and a very good possibility of being raped.
The Atlanta Police Department says there were 4 rapes reported in the city during Freaknik, 6 complaints filed about being groped. There's no telling how many weren't reported. What happens on the street in Freaknik would never be allowed any other time.
If the same events were to occur 1 week prior or 1 week later, the people who are perpetrators of those activities would be locked away.
We asked Mayor Bill Campbell for an interview and some answers. He declined. Jabari Samama acted as his spokesperson.
It's a problem that your cameras documented the problem, and I think now that we have to go back to the drawing boards, we are probably going to have to deploy more law enforcement personnel to be there, to be available.
Is it more police or a different message for police that will make the difference?
What kind of instructions were police officers given? What were they told to do? What were they told not to do?
Well, the specifics of what they were told to do and what not to do, I'm obviously not privy to that, and that is a question that the chief of police will have to respond to.
Atlanta Police Chief Beverly Harvard chose not to respond to questions. Freaknik is a major political football.
Why are we afraid to just say no? Is this a question because it's black students, a black administration, that we just won't say this is unacceptable?
Initially, he did say no. That was his position, no, and
he was attacked for it.
That was well, he was attacked for it, but I don't think the issue is whether or not the mayor was attacked for a stand that he took. I think the issue is whether or not it worked.
Samama and Hawthorne aren't ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater. In other words, they think Black College Spring Break can be saved, but Freaknik, the name and the bad actions, have to go. Next week, Hawthorne's committee will announce its recommendations to control the event. Now, our coverage of Freaknik caught on tape.
Live, local, late-breaking. Now, coverage you can count on. This is Channel 2 Action News at 6.
They're just like piranhas. You know, when one smell blood or something for food, then all of a sudden, all of them come and attack and join in.
Women talk about becoming victims during Freaknik. We've got the pictures and their personal accounts of the attacks. And that is our top story on Channel 2 Action News at 6. Good evening. I'm Monica Kaufman.
And I'm John Pruitt. A Team 2 investigation uncovers shocking stories of attacks on women by crowds of men during this year's Freaknik celebration. One woman getting off work reports getting shoved through a plate glass window, another nearly being raped. And there is more. We begin with Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie, who has spoken to the victims. Mark.
Well, John, the story of any one of these women would be compelling by itself, but you are about to hear about 3 incidents in Atlanta during Freaknik weekend, incidents that may cause some to question why is this happening.
I was probably 2, maybe even barely 1 second away from getting raped, big time.
I looked down and I don't have a sweater on anymore. My sunglasses was ripped off my head. Diamond ring missing.
The only thing we could do is just fight to try to get away, but we couldn't. There was just so many of them.
We saw this scene in Midtown Atlanta near the Fox. what looks like a parking lot pursuit in South DeKalb, and the rocking truck whose driver takes action. But however vivid the video images captured by our helicopter camera during Freaknik weekend, the words of women we found through police reports paint pictures of their own.
Walking from work, trying to take an arsenal route, and you're still being attacked.
Tracy Malone, a beautician, described having just left work downtown.
We got out the car and we closed the door, and then bam, it happened.
Jessica Latimer described trying to get out of the car and walk to a McDonald's to eat.
We kind of wanted to just see what was going on.
Student Stacy Lloyd describes going out with a roommate after getting off a restaurant job. Remember all that Freaknik traffic? She suggests traffic was part of a series of events that led to finding herself someplace she hadn't set out to be and in trouble.
Some guy jumps into the driver's seat of the car. So we start fighting in the car. I'm going like this and drilling him in the chest and in the face with my feet. And so someone opens up the passenger door and pulls me out of the car, and they drag me on the ground. They ripped my skirt, my underwear was ripped.
One of my sisters, she had guys reaching up under her dress, you know, trying to feel and everything. I had my dress ripped off, and my roommate, she had her chest fondled with and everything. And then my other sister, you know, she was fighting, and one guy hit her in the head with a bottle.
I started screaming like, help, help. At this time, they just started attacking us, you know, tearing off my sweater. My friend got behind me because she's smaller than me. So by this point in time, they done pushed us to over here. It seemed like the crowd was getting bigger and bigger, just full of guys over here thinking a freak show going on, and it's not. I mean, I have bruises in my skin from the marks where the guys...
Right there, that's from what happened.
Right, and the door was locked. The force of the crowd was so that they pushed us through this door. It broke the glass door.
We were so nervous and scared that we couldn't crank up the car, and so the policemen came. Everybody, when they heard the siren, everybody just like scattered.
The only thing that saved me from getting raped was a man yelled out, "Police." Heaven sent. I assume.
It was this one guy, and wherever he may be at, may God bless you, because I mean, he was like, you know, it was just him, and the guy was just trying to like get him and throw him out the way. He was still in between me and my girlfriends. It was like, you know, y'all calm down. You know, they ain't like that. They ain't like that. Go somewhere else. And it was like, he must have been an angel.
Now, for all his efforts, Ms. Malone says the man who tried to help her was not able to stop the crowd from forcing the women through the door. She says 2 arrests were made. Student Stacy says that the man who yelled police wasn't a real officer. We've been trying to get a comment from Atlanta Police Chief Beverly Harvard about our Freaknik disclosures, and just a short while ago, I was given this statement, quote, "I have publicly expressed concern and outrage about the lewd behavior of some black college spring break participants every year since becoming Atlanta's chief of police. I am pleased to finally see others come forth and express their concern." It's Mark Winnie. John?
Mark, thank you. Our Team 2 coverage of Freaknik Caught on Tape continues later at 6. The event is attracting anything but college students. What is the future of Freaknik? Does it even have a future? We'll take a look at that when Team 2 coverage continues later in this newscast.
1998 was billed as a kinder, gentler Freaknik, but that was not the case for the women caught in the mobs and mauled. Freaknik no longer is about college students having a good time. It's about a breakdown in law and order. But Atlanta isn't the only city struggling with this kind of event. But how do we stack up? I'll show you as we continue our Team 2 coverage of Freaknik Caught on Tape.
Galveston, Texas. Beach Party 98. 90,000 people, mostly college students. 152 arrests, the majority for misdemeanors. Daytona Beach, Florida. Black college reunion. 110,000 visitors, 329 arrests, 5 misdemeanors for exposure of sexual organs, 4 reported rapes. The majority of the crimes, including a shootout with police say committed by non-college students. Atlanta, Georgia, Freaknik, 50,000 attendees, 481 arrests, 4 for rape, 6 for fondling. The majority of the major problems caused, as in Daytona Beach, by non-college students. Fulton County Sheriff Jackie Barrett says police are going to have to send a very strong message right up front with the very first cars to arrive.
And telling them, this is the deal. We're not going to put up with it. And if you're really not a part of this Black College Spring Break Festival thing, you need to find someplace else to be.
It's a message police say worked in Galveston.
We're here to party. We're here to put it down.
Barrett only speaks for the sheriff's department. Atlanta is responsible for the majority of policing. Atlanta's police chief declined to comment. But other city leaders say something drastic needs to happen.
And when I took on this position, I said that if in fact that I cannot, as a parent and as a civic-minded person, deliver a safe and sane event for the participants and the people of Atlanta, that I will be the first to stand up and say, it's got to go.
Hawthorne and City Communications Director Jabari Samama say this year's event was one of the best planned and the best run they've had so far.
I do believe that we did beef up our police patrol. We also had a committee that recruited a large number of volunteers, and I think that committee helped to diffuse a lot.
Some students feel better planning and a more cohesive approach from the city and state would make a difference.
I think it should be a success, and I think it can be a success.
It started here, and I think where it originally started, it should always stay.
All point to the job fair and the Sweet Auburn Festival as a success. But a job fair was not what most of the participants were looking for, including a 13-year-old arrested for grabbing a woman's behind.
Said, what was that all about? And his response was, I'm just trying to get my freak on.
Some of the city's business leaders say enough is enough.
This year was a disaster. This year was more of a disaster to the business community than any previous year, even though we had less students.
Stephenson says he and others have asked to meet with city leaders to discuss concerns, but their request has fallen on deaf ears. Kathleen Bertrand of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau says there is one message that needs to get out.
If you're coming to bare your breasts, if you're coming to curse women, if you're coming to assault women, if you're coming to grope women, if you're coming to hang body parts outside of various parts of the car, you're not welcome.
One thing all agreed upon, Freaknik can't continue the way it is because it's bad for the city's image, and that's bad for business. Tonight at 11, a look at the effect on business, plus businesses, students answer the question, should Freaknik continue? And we'll have more of the statement from Chief Beverly Harvard, who just responded to our reports within the last half hour.
Live, local, late-breaking. Now, coverage you can count on. This is Channel 2 Action News at 6.
The committee has decided this year the fate of Freaknik is that it has to go away in its current form.
Black College Spring Break. Freaknik may no longer have a future in Atlanta. There's a proposal to ban it. And that is our top story on Channel 2 Action News at 6. Good evening. I'm Monica Kaufman.
And I'm John Pruitt. The man who heads the Black College Spring Break Planning Committee is recommending Freaknik, as is popularly called, be canceled. He made that decision after seeing a Channel 2 investigation which showed home video of women being attacked. Investigative reporter Mark Winnie joins us live from downtown with more. Mark?
Well, John, I got the impression that George Hawthorne, the chairman of the committee, and Kathleen Bertrand, the vice chair, and others were already grappling about what to do with this situation. But today we had some pretty tough talk from them.
We will be recommending to the mayor that we use every means possible to send the message that there is no Freaknik activity. There is no Black College Spring Break.
If you have an event that is called Freaknik, you have participants and people that come to our city with a Freaknik mentality. And that mentality means a free-for-all on women, assaults on our streets, and a disregard for the public safety of the citizens of Atlanta.
Some might call it frank talk about Freaknik. From Black College Spring Break Planning Committee Chair George Hawthorne and Vice Chair Kathleen Bertrand, it comes after images like these took form, this in Midtown Atlanta near the Fox, this apparent pursuit through a parking lot in the South DeKalb Mall vicinity, as was what happened to the roof of a van which was virtually surrounded. And there was also what we heard from women, one of whom indicated she had just gotten off work.
Imagine 100 guys on top of you and you don't know why. screaming and taking off our shirt, and they just had us hemmed up in this corner.
But as soon as we got out, a swarm of guys just bum rushed us.
And they dragged me on the ground and just start ripping at all my clothing. Just start ripping.
It can be even dangerous for young women, whether you're coming to the activity or coming home from work and just happen to get caught in a traffic jam or in a rush.
One key distinction, Hawthorne says there will still be a national job fair. But as for the situation in general, we're told formal recommendations will be going to the mayor.
We're looking for the support of the African American leadership in this city to move forward with prudent, strong judgments and believe us that, in fact, it takes common sense to look at this for the facts and what it is and make a strong determination that we must do what's best for our children.
Now, Hawthorne indicated that some very impressive groups of people are already on board with the plan. He also indicated there were other public safety issues involved besides those that we delineated in this report, those 3 young women describing 3 separate incidents. Now, we went to talk to a spokesman for Mayor Bill Campbell. He said the mayor will have no comment on the recommendations of the Black College Spring Break Planning Committee, other than he looks forward to receiving them. He has not so far and wants to reserve comment until then, is what I understood from Nick Gold. So once the mayor decides if he's going to accept the recommendations, then becomes the task of getting the word out, well, really across the nation. Monica, John?
Mark, Freaknik is a year away now. What is likely to happen between now and, say, the first of next year?
Well, we're expecting an announcement that clearly lays out some more about this, steps that the committee can take. Perhaps, well, we expect it by the end of the week. And then the committee, I expect, will go into the business of deciding how they're going to get the word out, how they're going to implement this. I think that one thing that would be considered, based on my take on the situation, is sending out word that if you break the law here during Freaknik or any other time of the year, the law will be enforced.
Mark, thank you very much. Can the threat of strict law enforcement and other measures keep Freaknik from returning? Those are the key questions after unveiling a plan today at City Hall to discontinue Freaknik. The recommendations are from the Black College Spring Break Committee, and they come in the aftermath of a series of Channel 2 reports about attacks on women and other problems during events this year. Channel 2 investigative reporter Mark Winnie broke those stories along with Monica Kaufman, and Mark joins us live from City Hall. Mark.
John, let me read you an excerpt from the Planning Committee's report. It refers to the numerous accounts from African-American women, Freaknik participants and non-Freaknik participants, that were groped, sexually harassed, threatened, physically assaulted, stripped, and sexually assaulted for nothing more than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That is consistent with the findings of our investigation. Question what to do about it. Here's a summary of some of the highlights of the committee's report.
I'm calling this press conference today to release the report of the Black College Spring Break Planning Committee.
Lined up with Committee Chair George Hawthorne were representatives of, among others, the hotel, restaurant, and college communities. We wait now to see whether the mayor lines up behind the committee. Its report refers to, quote, recommendations for the discontinuance of Freaknik activities and events, including that the City of Atlanta should not approve any festival permits for public facilities in the city. It calls for very strict enforcement of traffic ordinances and impounding of violators' vehicles. It calls for Atlanta police to have a very strict enforcement program with a particular focus on laws relating to violence against women. It calls for very strict enforcement of the curfew ordinance, apparently for juveniles. And it says the committee will publicize its position starting immediately.
This plan represents the committee's desire to get rid of the negative elements of this event.
The report comes after our helicopter camera captured a variety of images, both in Atlanta and DeKalb. And besides these pictures, we heard from women about what happened to them in other incidents. Still, one young man voiced opposition to canceling Freaknik.
This is still America. We still have the constitutional right to move about the length and breadth of this land as we choose. We may not agree with what the young people do, but this is still a constitutionally free nation.
And indeed, the mayor's spokesman says,
we have tried strategies in the past to cancel this event, and I think we're of the position right now that this event cannot be canceled. No one person, whether mayor or committee or group of individuals can cancel this event, and the goal is to root out the lawlessness, the lewd and inappropriate behavior, but all citizens and all people are welcome to come to Atlanta.